This is the Transactional Analysis Podcast. Conversations on the theory, application, and spirit of TA, sponsored by the International Transactional Analysis Association and the European Association for Transactional Analysis. So we've got a different kind of episode today. First for us, really. One of our previous guests, Dr. Mark Widdowson, who was, I think it was the fourth episode that we recorded here on the podcast, in our first psychotherapy episode. He recently died early August this year, and we decided to make this episode a tribute to him, partly because of our personal connection to him, as well as his significant contribution to the TA community. And so we're just going to have a little bit of time where we share about his personal impact on us before then the recording of his acceptance speech, an award for research by the ITAA.
Yeah, it was presented to him at the World Conference in Berlin in 2017.
And you were there, weren't you?
I was in the audience, yeah. Yeah, I was in the audience. So I heard the speech firsthand, and yeah, I'm excited to listen to it again, actually.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I decided to listen to it, and there was so much in it that it is still very relevant and still very important. And so it's still very current, still really applies. And I think there's a lot in this recording that's going to be very valuable for anybody who hasn't heard his speech, because it's likely that most people haven't heard his speech because it was so long ago.
Yeah. And it really is about recognizing his work and his contribution to transactional analysis and to the theory and the development and research of it, to honor that.
And for me personally, I think of all the trainers that I had over my 5 years of training, when it comes to how I do my therapy and lots of the practical application of my knowledge, I think Mark probably influenced me more than anyone when it comes to the evidence-based practice and how I do that. There's lots of other people who've been a significant influence, but Mark really did influence me. And just his very pragmatic approach to making a difference to people's lives, as well as being an awful lot of fun whenever he was doing the training. I always look forward to the weekends when he was delivering some kind of training. Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment, yeah, that's for sure. I remember when he was sharing his speech at the World Conference, at some point somebody heckled from the audience pretty early on and said, "Hey, Mark, slow down."
Yeah, that's right.
Because the one memory I have of Mark is that everything happens at light speed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, when we recorded the episode, I remember thinking I'm going to have to add some spaces in, because he had so much to say and so much to share and such a massive amount of energy. I think that's something that I shared with others about him, the concept of physis in transactional analysis, this idea of this force of nature that promotes autonomy and healing. He had a lot of physis, and actually being around him, I felt more alive. And I think a lot of us felt enlivened by his presence and his passion and his enthusiasm, and that energy he transmitted through the speed with which he could talk and the amount of information he could transfer in just a short training, a couple of hours. I think it was Leilani Mitchell who said you would pack in a weekend's training into a 2-hour session. And also some of his writing, he did a lot of publications, especially with the Transactional Analysis Research Journal, did an awful lot there. He created a way of working with depression, and he did his doctorate in working with depression using transactional analysis and converted that into a manual of how to treat depression, as well as the book that he wrote, 100 Key Points in TA Psychotherapy, which I just think is a fantastic practical guide when you're a psychotherapist.
Yeah, and this is in memory and in his honor.
Yeah.
And a tribute, really. It is a tribute to Mark.
Yeah, he's made such an impact on, I think, anybody who's trained with him. He leaves a mark. And so this episode really is just to honour all the hard work and the effort that he's put in his contribution to the TA community and to those outside the TA community, the work that he did to support therapists in Ukraine and Poland. And I know there's a lot of gratitude expressed from that part of the world with the conflict there, and how he gave a lot of his time for free, a lot of his energy into that. And this is really just to say thank you to him and to honor that memory of him.
So we hope you enjoy listening to Mark and to his speech, which I think really demonstrates his, like Matt said, his vices, his force of energy, and that you remember him and his contribution to TA as you listen to this episode.
It is therefore my pleasure to announce that the first winner of this award is Dr. Mark Widdowson, a TA in psychotherapy, who is receiving the award for his research into the effectiveness of transactional analysis psychotherapy using case study methodology, and whose excellent research, infectious enthusiasm, and tireless work in the TA community evident to all of us who know him. Mark, can I please call on you to receive this award?
Hello, everyone. So I'm used to big auditoriums, but this is pretty special. So I'm going to take a photograph for Twitter, okay? Wave, everyone. Say hi. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to start by saying thank you. I really can't tell you how much this award means to me. Receiving this kind of recognition is a whole heap of high-quality strokes from my professional community. I got a massive stroke from IATA a few years ago, and now I get this one from the ITAA, and I'm really pleased. Or, as we say in Northern England, I'm right chuffed. So there you go, you learnt a new word. So these high-intensity strokes are because a few years ago I started a journey which has changed me for the better. It's been a journey which has opened up and transformed my career and has taught me a lot about myself and helped me to grow. It's been a journey which has radically changed how I work with my clients. It's been a journey which has required many sacrifices, but which has resulted in much gain. It's now my job to give thanks and say a few things about research. So what I'm about to say is located within a psychotherapy context, but I think if you're not from psychotherapy, you can just do the translation yourself. It's the same thing. You get the idea. I'm all too aware that a lot of people don't really care very much about research. Maybe they think it's boring or irrelevant, or that all the important research has already been done and that there's nothing new to learn from research. But personally, I think that this kind of thinking is dangerous. These days, hard evidence matters. Regardless of what you think about it, this is a fact of life, and in a lot of ways it makes sense. Agencies which manage public money need to be accountable. Businesses which are interested in profits and financial stability need to know they're making a good investment. And individuals who are spending their hard-earned money need to know that they're getting good value for their money. Evidence from research can help people to make good decisions about spending. Let me put it to you like this. If you were sick and you went to your doctor and they said, we have 2 treatments you can choose from. One of them has been verified time and time again by research and which we know is very effective. And the other has been around for a long time, but there isn't very much evidence for it, although the people who make it like it a lot. Which are you going to choose, seriously? You know, that's how it works. We all know, everybody in this room knows that TA is effective, but that is not enough. The rest of the world need to know that what we do works, and the only reliable way we can demonstrate this is through research. In the world of psychotherapy and counselling, there are many different theoretical approaches to choose from, and some of them have very good, solid, reliable evidence. I imagine the same can be said in both educational and organisational fields. It's not enough simply to think that more needs to be done. Because while we wait, other therapies grow in recognition and consolidate their position. Research is not only essential to our acceptance, but it is essential to our incomes. I sometimes wonder if most people in the TA world like being marginalised, or if most of you have a script which calls for you to be poor. I also wonder if most people in the TA world don't actually want to have a nice kitchen, or a nice holiday, or a new car. Maybe you all have wealthy partners or families, so you don't need the money. And if that's the case, and you do want nice things, and you do want to earn a good living, then you actually have a vested interest in the development of TA research. If you want to work and you want to be paid well, then you do what you can to support TA research because it is in your own interest to do so. Although there are some people who would disagree with me on this, TA is a massively under-researched approach. And this is not just my opinion, it's a very broad opinion. A few years ago, in 2012, I set out a vision for TA. I said that I wanted to see TA recognised as an empirically supported therapy by the year 2020. We've made a lot of progress, but there's still quite a long way to go. I understand all the arguments and all the controversies about the evidence-based therapy movement, but it's the model that we have. We're stuck with it, so we have no choice but to go with it. When I started my research, I made a political choice to focus on depression. Now, as we all know, psychotherapy theory is autobiographical, and of course I have a personal and professional interest in depression. But my main motivation was to do research that would have the biggest impact in taking TA forward in the shortest amount of time. So in this sense, I did it for you, for all of you. I also made another tactical choice, which required me to make another sacrifice. I was really encouraged to publish my research in prestigious psychotherapy research journals. Now, I could have done that and it would have done my career more good, but I decided instead to put it in for the TA community in our journals to allow you to see what we can do, to see a different vision for research, and to encourage you to engage in collaborative research processes. So effectively, I gave these articles to you all as a gift. And I did that in the hope that other people would join me in starting research. So this award is for my case study research on the effectiveness of depression. The way to be an empirically supported therapy is usually through randomized controlled trials, although there is an alternative route, which is entirely through case studies. And it seemed to me that this was an ideal path for the TA community. The work I've done has been complemented by the work of Biljana van Rijn, who's used quantitative methodology to support TA, and also by the Italian TA community led by Enrico Bonelli, who've replicated my own study repeatedly and with a lot of energy. And we can now say that TA is demonstrably efficacious for depression. We can also say that TA has met the basic criteria to be considered as an evidence-based therapy. Case study research is very, very rich. I don't know of any other research method which gives us such deep insights into the process and the outcome of therapy. With individual cases, we can look very deeply into it to see not just how much the client changed, but how did that change come about? And this gives us an insight that you can't get from anything else, I think. And also, I'm a therapist. I like people. I like their stories. And I like to see processes unfold over time. And case study research gives me an opportunity to do research, but still do all of those things. It's just the perfect model for therapists. The case has allowed me to develop a TA treatment manual for depression. If you haven't read it, then please do so, preferably very soon, because I'm having a new kitchen fitted next week. And yeah, you guess, and the sales of the book are paying for the kitchen. So the treatment manual is the first evidence-based treatment manual in existence. So we know that TA can be an effective treatment for depression. Specifically, TA has been shown to be effective for treatment of depression in a number of trials in Europe. There's no data so far to demonstrate its effectiveness in other cultural contexts, although there is a group of Indian transactional analysts who are currently replicating the study, which is great. We know that TA psychotherapy can also be effective for reducing anxiety symptoms, social anxiety, and mixed depression and anxiety together. We know, particularly from Biljana's studies, that TA psychotherapy has comparable outcomes with other humanistic psychotherapies. We also know a few things about the distinctive features of TA and what are the qualities of an effective therapist. And this all came from my research. I didn't make this up. These were the things that the clients told me that they liked. So first of all, we found out that TA is a developmentally informed model which supports change in the affective, cognitive, behavioral, and relational domains. Now, most therapies only work on one or two of those, and in TA we work on all four simultaneously within a developmental context of understanding the client. And I don't know of any other approach that does that. My research also indicated a few other factors which were relevant to outcomes. And the first was that clients who are prepared for therapy do better from therapy. In other words, we need to teach clients how to be clients, because when they come, they don't know what to do if they've never been before. We also know that the therapeutic relationship is characterized by a combination of challenge and support. The clients in my study were very, very positive about their therapists. And in particular, what they said was that TA therapists were very active in the therapy process, that the therapists were all genuine, open, and emotionally engaged with the client, and were willing to show their humor and personality in therapy. I think that's really good. We were real people, and the clients liked it. Furthermore, we also found that the most powerful changes seemed to take place when clients were engaged in experiential change processes. Now, for this sense, it didn't matter whether it was relational TA, classical TA, redecision. The thing that united them all is change comes about when it's experiential, not when it's cognitive, but when the client thinks and feels at the same time and when they do something differently. This is how really deep and lasting change happens. Many, many years ago, before I started research, I had a conversation with Professor John McLeod, who asked me where all the TA research was, why there isn't more TA research. In fact, actually, this conversation was the one that started me doing research, because I did that thing that TA people do. I started complaining about it, and then I recognized my own discounting. So I thought I'd better do something about this, and, well, here I am. So John asked me, where is all the TA research? And I do have a few ideas about this. Now, I realize that many of you here did research methods at university. Is that right? Yeah. And it was boring, probably. Yeah, really boring. So for a lot of people, it's just something they have to do in order to get their degree. But, the fact that you didn't enjoy it then doesn't mean you don't like research. In my view, it just means you were taught badly, very badly. And this is a real problem, because I think if you put people off research when you first introduce it to them, and they don't go on to do research after that, they become put off by it. So I really encourage everybody in the room who is a trainer to find new and creative ways of teaching research to your students. And if you can, get people in who do research so that they can see what it's like from a researcher who does research rather than somebody who just learnt it from books. Another reason there isn't much TA research is because TA people are outsiders. We're all a little bit weird, aren't we? Like in our own way, we're just a little bit strange. And that's why we like it, because there's lots of strange people, so we don't feel so strange. We all fit in together. And that's a good thing, but it's a strength and a weakness at the same time. You see, TA community developed in private institutes mostly, away from universities. Now, the thing with universities is when you get universities, you get recognition. Now, our CTA is the most fantastic achievement there is, isn't there? I mean, it's an amazing thing. But really, does anybody outside the TA world know what CTA means? I don't think they do. And I don't think they care, really. They don't know how much work and hard work and effort goes into achieving a CTA. But the outside world do understand what academic degrees mean. They know what it means when somebody has a master's degree. They know what it means if somebody's got a PhD. So there's something about how we're seen from the outside. It's like we're keeping this secret to ourselves. Why? And, we have the most amazing organizational infrastructure, and yet we can't do it. We haven't managed to do it so far. But the fact that we're still here 60 years after Burns' death means that we can get ourselves together and we can do things if we join together. So I encourage us to start shifting our energy more towards research. I also would encourage the trainers in private TA training institutes to let their institutes become powerhouses of TA research. Think about it like the sort of production of electricity from solar panels on roofs everywhere. If everybody's doing it, then you can generate a lot of energy very quickly. Now I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Not really a surprise. So I've already mentioned TA training in the CTA process. And I think it's important to consider the impact that this examination process has on research. As much as our exams are very rigorous, and in a lot of ways we really need to be proud of them, my view is that our exams are like a contraceptive pill for research. meaning that it never ends up happening in the first place. And the reason why is because by the time someone has passed their CTA, they're too tired to do research. They just want to hang out a little bit. And then once they've got their energy back, they then become trainers. And then they get hooked into the whole TSTA training system. And by the time they finish that, they're either more tired or too busy with the demands of their own training program. So their research energy just goes. Can you recognize what I'm saying, yeah? Thank you. It's not just me then. So, we have all of this talent and passion that in this room and in our community, and it gets taken up with climbing to the top of a hill that only exists because we say it does. We need to start thinking about hills that are outside there and start climbing those, I think. So it's in your interest to do more research. It's not just for a few people. The more people that do research, the better we will all be. The better off we will be. And we will all have a new kitchen and a nice holiday and a new car and all of these lovely things that we want to have. So, although I'm receiving this award, which is really, look at this. This is going to look really good on my wall. Thank you. But I didn't do this on my own, and I want to really say this: research is a lonely business, especially when you're part of a community which often doesn't seem to value research. But it never happens in a vacuum. Research is never just done by one person. There are always people in the background who contributed in lots of different ways. And I want to thank them. Now, I realized I'm likely to sound like an actor at a Hollywood award ceremony, so I'll try to keep it simple. There are 3 people, though, who I want to start off by acknowledging because they started me in TA. So these people are Keith Tudor, Adrienne Lee, and Ian Stewart. Can we... Thank you. I can see them. They're looking embarrassed at the back. There we go. Keith was the first person I met in the TA world. In fact, I met Keith before I came to TA. I met him socially, and he encouraged me to join the TA world. Not only did he do that, but from day one, he encouraged me to think and to think clearly. And he also got me writing. So in that sense, it's your fault, Keith. You did it. Then I also want to thank Adrienne Lee and Ian Stewart because they provided me with a space where I could be me, and they gave me acceptance in a way that I'd never experienced before. And they've never been anything other than 100% supportive and encouraging. These 3 people are all very dear friends of mine, but I'll remain grateful to all 3 of them for the rest of my life. So thank you. I'm not going to cry, honest. The other people who helped me specifically with my research are Professor John McLeod, who triggered my research career, Professor Sue Wheeler from the University of Leicester, both of whom were incredibly rigorous and supportive all the time I was doing my doctoral research, and they really taught me what it means to be a researcher. They're both incredible people. They're not part of the TA world, but they have supported us more than you will realise by helping me to become a researcher. I'd also like to thank the therapists and clients who participated in my research. They were unbelievably generous. They opened up what is one of the most private spaces ever, and they let me into it. They let me into it, to look into it, to study it, to tear it apart in detail. And I think that we owe a lot of thanks to their generosity, because I couldn't have done it without them. Without these therapists and clients, there would be no data. I want to thank my colleagues at the University of Salford, who've been very supportive and have allowed me to develop my own research interests. And last but not least, there's my family and friends, and of course my partner, Philip. They've all encouraged me, and even though they thought I was a bit mad for starting my research in the first place, they've all been encouraging because they knew it was what I wanted to do and because I was passionate about it. And Philip in particular has ensured that I'm nourished and cared for both practically and emotionally. And he also ensures that I have a lot of fun and laughter in my life. So thank you, Philip, for helping me to keep it real. So there are other people out there doing TA research, and I don't want them to feel left out. So whoever they are, I invite you just to take a moment and put your hands together to thank all the other researchers as well for what they do. So I'm almost finished, okay? A major problem the research community faces is funding. Since the financial crash, research funding for psychotherapy has dried up to almost nothing, and the money just simply isn't there anymore. The main researchers of the TA world are associated with universities in one way or another, and universities are pressurising academic staff to conduct research which attracts funding. Although the university have been very supportive of me, they're now starting to go, okay, show us the money. So it's there. And this is going to make it difficult to do the kind of large-scale research that we need to do. And, I think that although IATA has some money set aside for research funding, it is not enough. It is a fraction of what we need. So in the spirit of TA, and instead of complaining about it, I think we perhaps all need to do something about it. So I ask all members of the TA community one thing. I ask you to donate 1 hour's worth of income per year for research. I don't think this is a very big thing to ask. It's not a lot of money for a lot of you. And if you want to give more, fine. But, if you can't afford to do that, then, find another way to contribute. But it's in your interest. If you give 1 hour of your income to IATA, who I've just decided this for them, by the way, I'm sure they can look after the money and give it to researchers. But if you do that, then I can promise you that it will get spent properly on research. And it will also yield returns. It's an investment in your own future. Think of it like a pension payment, okay? So you put a little money in and you'll get a lot out, because we will do research and we will secure your futures for you. So if you can't afford to do it, then that's fine. I know not everybody has money, so there are other ways you can contribute. You can give time. Even if you only have 1 or 2 hours, you can contribute that time by typing up transcripts and other things. I can tell you now, researchers always have a lot of data that they need to process. And if you help us out with it, we will really use your time wisely and we will be very grateful. The last thing I want you to do is to read the research articles. It's ethical good practice, and if you're not sure where to start with case studies, because they're stories about people. They're stories about the people that you work with, and you can learn something, and I promise you it will enrich your career if you do. If you really don't know anything about research, I'll give you a little tip, right? Read the introduction and then skip to the discussion and the conclusions. Don't worry about the methods. You don't need to understand them if you're not going to just in research. But the introduction, the discussion and the conclusions are where all the meaty stuff is. That's also interesting because it helps you to think about your own clients. And you never know, you might find a little piece of gold within them that helps you get over a problem or a sticking point that you have with one of your clients. So finally, last few words, I just want to say thank you to all of you again for this honour. And I give you my word, I really do promise all of you, I will keep on doing what I can to ensure that TA gets the recognition it rightly deserves. Thank you.
For yourself, Mark, with transactional analysis, what is it that you would say that you most love about it? What is it that's drawn you to it?
As I said earlier on, it's flexibility and its versatility. Those are two hugely important things. Some of the models, I think, are so simple and elegant, and I use them every day. The two in particular that I use the most are the concept of ego states and life script. And, every day as a therapist, I'm using them. They're so helpful. One of the things I like in TA is where we encourage people to just keep it simple. Now, that doesn't mean dumb it down. That just means not unnecessarily complicating things. Yeah. And I like that. There are other things as well I like about TA. One of the things I'll be perfectly honest about is I like TA people. I've met some amazing people who, have been part of my life for a long time now.
If there was anything else that you wanted to add from this podcast that you'd like the public to know about transactional analysis, is there anything else that you've not said? Anything?
It's fantastic. Do it.
Great.
I could be talking for about almost 3 days on this, so I better just stop there. But, it's have a look at it. The thing is that the very worst thing that's going to happen is that you come across and we don't really fit for you, but you've learned something interesting along the way. Learn a little bit about it and then just put it into practice. Don't just take my word for it. See, does it work? Keep experimenting.
As always, if you found anything in today's episode interesting, please feel free to reach out. You can visit our website, which has lots of information and resources, tapodcast.com. You can connect with us on all major platforms such as Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can email us at info@tapodcast.com. If you aren't already, please follow us wherever you get your podcast from. And we would really appreciate a review on the platform you're listening on as well. It helps raise the profile of the podcast and TA. Thanks for listening.
Sponsored by the International Transactional Analysis Association. You can find more information on the ITAA at www.itaaworld.org and the European Association for Transactional Analysis. You can find more information on IATA at www.iatanews.org.